Okay. I'd like to call to order the Town of Delafield Annual Meeting of Electors for Tuesday, April 19th, 2022. If you'd all rise and join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Green, if you do a roll call.
Sure. Supervisor Kranek.
Present.
Supervisor Michaels.
Present.
Chairman Troy.
Present.
And Supervisor-elect Magali Miller.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is a fun meeting where we get to introduce and swear into office two supervisors. Steve Michaels was reelected for a second term. Congratulations. And we have a new member, Magali Miller, if I got that right.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So welcome. And
Thank you.
if you stand, we'll do the swearing in.
All right. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. We'll do one at a time, and then. All right. So I, Stephen Michaels,
I, Stephen Michaels,
having been elected as supervisor of the town board
having been elected as supervisor of the town board
for the town of Delafield,
for the town of Delafield,
swear that I will support the Constitution
swear that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the state of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the state of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office
discharge the duties of said office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability,
So help me God.
so help me God.
Okay. Move a pen. I guess I imagined everyone coming closer, but that's okay.
To you?
Yeah, no, that's fine. All right, Magali, repeat after me. I, Magali Miller,
I, Magali Miller,
having been elected as supervisor of the town board
have been elected as a supervisor of the town board
for the town of Delafield,
for the town of Delafield,
swear that I will support the Constitution
swear that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the state of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the state of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office. I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability. So help me God.
So help me God.
Okay.
Well, that's great. Congratulations. Welcome aboard. And I'd like to take this moment now and thank Christy for her years of service, both on the Planning Commission and on the town board. So
Let's not forget the Park and Rec Commission also.
that's right, Park and Rec Commission too. So she's been involved for many, many years, and she was a very positive influence on the town. Okay, and now we go to the approval of the April 20, 2021 annual meeting minutes.
And just a reminder that this is for the
This is-
audience to
yeah.
participate in, so.
So motions and votes come from the audience. I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the 2021 annual meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. There is no old business, new business. Are there any citizens' comments? Anybody like to speak on anything that's either on the agenda or not? If you'd like to speak, ma'am?
I'm not exactly sure of the process. This has nothing to do about the annual meeting. This has,
Oh, you could wait till this board meeting. We're going to have a regular board meeting immediately follow. If you'd prefer to wait for that, that's fine.
well, it's whatever.
No, we can wait, that's fine. Anybody else? Okay. Our auditor, Howard, is going to be about 15 minutes late, so we cannot go into the presentation of the 2021 audit. So with that, we'll skip down to department reports, and I believe Chief Fenning is going to do a presentation. A short presentation.
God, 10 minutes or less, I'll do my best here.
Awesome.
I've got to make sure I get done before Howard is. So Dan asked that I come tonight to present you guys with just some statistics from 2021, so that's what I'm here to do. So 2021, we ended the year with 501 total calls in the town of Delafield. 14 of those were for working fires, whether or not that's a structure fire, car fire, brush fire, anything in that nature. 2 of them were for overpressure, ruptures, or explosions. 248 emergency medical incidents, 24 hazardous materials incidents, and hazmat incidents. We all think of the tanker truck leaning on its side, drinking or flowing green stuff down into the creek. That is not all of those. Those can be anything from a gas leak, a natural gas leak in a home or a residence, down to a fuel spill that's leaking from a vehicle. So that's what's bucketed into hazmat calls. 34 calls for service and service calls, and those are just general citizen requests, anything from locked out of a residence to they need some help with some water, anything like that. 32 good intent calls. Good intent calls are in the springtime you see snow melting off of your neighbor's roof and steam coming from it. Believe it or not, people call the fire department because they think the house is on fire. So those are good intent calls. 29 false alarms. Those are false alarms, exactly that. Somebody's fire alarm's going off in their house or things like that. We go there and help them reset the alarm. And 18 are bucketed into the natural disasters. No, there wasn't 18 separate natural disasters in the town. But those are trees down, water problems, flooding, anything like that that we respond to throughout the year. Any questions on those at all? So Mark, if you had those, did you hand out the memo? Yes. Okay, great. So Mr. Troy, in about September of last year, he asked me to do a response time, average response time comparison. So I gave that memo out. I wasn't sure if that got forwarded out to the town board of supervisors, but in 2020, prior to the consolidation, the average response time for town of Delafield was 9 minutes and 4 seconds. And huge thanks to Mark and staff that were able to go and resurrect that data out of the old database. And at the end of October of last year, we were averaging 6 minutes and 30 seconds. So that's about a 39.14% decrease in response times through the consolidation. These are using like numbers in a like situation. And I am super proud to report that as of the end of last year, response times went down even further, and we're averaging 6 minutes and 19 seconds from time of alarm to the time that our units arrive on scene. And this is to the town of Delafield. This is specific geographically to the town of Delafield. So a huge kudos and congratulations to the town board for supporting Lake Country Fire and supporting the fire departments here, because the end result is over a 40% decrease in response times to your citizens and your electeds, your citizens in this room. So again, huge congratulations to you guys. How are we able to do this? We're able to do it a couple of different ways. The first is that there are people upstairs in this building 24/7, 365. There's 4 people housed in this station 24/7, 365. Additionally, there are people staffed in the city of Delafield station, so that's the one at 115 Main Street. And that station is obviously remarkably closer to anything off of Cushing Park Road, over in that subdivision over there, and the new subdivisions, and oftentimes, any first call for service, that station's getting dispatched. It takes 2 minutes to get there versus the 9-minute travel time from this station. And thirdly, you're also receiving response from the Wales station. So the station at 600 South Wales Road is actually closer to a lot of things down Highway 18 than this station is, just by geographic location. So you're winning on all 3 fronts in regards to that, and just a huge congratulations and thank you to you for supporting us. So Mr. Kranig, I know this is kind of one thing that when this station was built to be a regional station. It was built geographically to, service all of the Lake Country area, and it's doing exactly that. In addition to we said 501 calls for service in the town of Delafield last year. This station was the primary response station to 992 calls for service throughout our communities last year. And that's a benefit to everyone involved here. So it's just a win-win in my opinion. So where did we end the year? Mr. Howard, when he is done with you guys, I think he gets to start our audit. So we ended on 2021 on the positive side of the balance sheet. Not exactly, we know we're well into the positive, but that exact number we won't have yet for quite a few months. Howard puts us towards the end of the line because he has all of the towns and everything to get done before the April deadline. That means we're going to come to you for a budget amendment because we're going to be over on the expense side, but also more importantly, we're certainly well over on the revenue side to cover any overage on the expenses. And then we traditionally receive our final audit report sometime in July or August of the year. And that's right on line for Howard's timeline. So, current climate. There's all sorts of, I'm sure you're following things that are happening all around the Lake Country area in terms of fire departments and staffing. But there are two pivotal shifts in staffing really in the last 2 years. Is COVID-19 has really taken a toll on the workforce in general in the United States. The fire service is not immune to that. In 2021, COVID-19 was the leading cause of line of duty deaths in the fire service. More than heart attacks, more than responding to and returning from stations, and more than people that died in a burning building. So this number has caused people that were working part-time and paid on call and really volunteering their time for their communities to take a step back. Taking a step back and saying, is this really worth it? Is this something that I need to do for $16, $18, $19 an hour? The civic duty, is it worth it? So that has taken a toll on the labor force across the fire service nationwide, and it will continue to take a toll for the foreseeable future. So recruitment and retention across all agencies remains an issue, and we're not immune to that, as much as I'd like to tell you we are, but we're not. Also, current climate and the not so good news, but our capital equipment is up 28% since February 1st. So that is an across-the-board 28% increase from every ambulance manufacturer, fire truck manufacturer. Thankfully, we were able to order the ladder truck on January 4th, and we beat that increase. So we're able to lock in that pricing for this year. But this is an across-the-board thing that's happening. I'm sure if you're trying to go buy a vehicle yourself right now, you're experiencing some of these price increases. Our 2024 ambulance will likely need to be purchased in sometime of October of this year just to ensure that we receive it in 2022. That's how far out these are trending right now and focusing right now. The chassis price, we've been told by our ambulance manufacturer, all chassis prices are listed in the contract as to be determined. It's an unprecedented time, I'll say that, in terms of anything that has wheels on it right now. So it's going to be stuff to talk about as we work through budgets and work through the year, but just wanted to, as long as we had the floor and being able to tell you about it. We also have set up a long-range staffing group. So Anthony Arbusius from the town of Delafield is actually the head of that long-range staffing group. And we're meeting monthly to come up with a long-range staffing plan that will meet the needs of the communities this year, next year, and 10 years out. So we want to be very open and transparent with what's going on and have a plan that everyone can see, hear, and get on board with. And then also we're working on strategic planning. Strategic planning and the long-range staffing kind of go hand in hand. So there are three documents that Mark gave out. Oh, sorry, Mark. The two other ones that he's going to hand out to you real quick. I just thought that they were worthwhile for you to see and peruse at your leisure. But the first one is a article that's put forth by the Wisconsin Policy Forum. This is I would say one of the well-respected policy groups in the state of Wisconsin. And the headline on it is Fire and EMS is in need of resuscitation. So there's some really good statistics in there for you to kind of read and just see that this isn't a problem that's facing the Lake Country area or Waukesha County. This is facing the whole entire state. There is you will see a graph in there in terms of cost per capita. I did put the town of Delafield in there. It's on a sticky note, so you'll see it in yellow on there. But I believe your cost per capita is about $65.75 per resident for fire and EMS protection, which is well below the statewide average. Some communities are as high as $200 per capita. So not saying that that's anywhere where we're heading, just for your general knowledge. The second one is a report by ESO. So ESO is our data collection. That's who we handle all of our EMS and fire inspections. All of it's done cloud-based through the ESO platform. So through that, ESO is able to mine all sorts of data out of every agency anonymously. And they have some trends and things like that, and they're really kind of trendsetters in terms of data mining and statistic gathering. So I included that in there for you. Just kind of highlights on some of the things that we're working on through this year, not only as Lake Country Fire Rescue, but as a fire service as a whole. So I did my best to keep it under 15 minutes.
Oh, I think it was a comprehensive report.
So,
Any questions
any
for
questions?
Chief? No, you did great.
Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you too, Matt. Or Mark.
It's all good.
Okay, there are, all the other individual department reports are included in the package. We won't go through them here. They're also on the website in detail. Howard's apparently running a little later than normal. Does anybody have any questions on the audit that perhaps Mr. Green can address? Anybody in the audience have any questions for the audit? Should we just move on and?
We can just recess until he gets here. I don't want to do it in the town board meeting,
No.
be part of the annual meeting.
Well, if no one has any questions, can we just take a motion to approve the audit as presented? And then we can have Howard come in at some meeting in the future and address anything that he feels we need to pay attention to.
Let's wait, because he's coming out of his way to come here, so I'd
Okay.
rather, if he's coming, he can.
Could we recess this meeting and call to order the next one?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And we'll just, okay, this meeting will be recessed and will be called back. And with that, we'll move to opening up the Town of Delafield Board of Supervisors meeting scheduled for Tuesday, April 19th. And again, if you'd stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, now we're in the town board roll. So again, Mr. Green, a roll call.
Supervisors Miller, Kranick,
Present.
Michaels,
Present.
Chairman Troy.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay. And again, Supervisor Miller, your first board meeting. Congratulations. Citizen comments. Public comments from citizens regarding items on or not on the agenda. The board may not engage in a discussion with the citizen making the comments. Individual presentations are limited to 3 minutes, and citizens shall follow the rules set forth in section 2.04 sub 1 sub D of the town code. Anybody like to speak? Now's your turn. If you just come up to the podium, hand that slip of paper to Administrator Green, and you can address the board.
Yep, I'll take it. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I'm here to request that the board consider getting some information to the citizens of the town about voting. I found it rather disconcerting during the primary election that there was no information about the candidates, where to vote, and any information about what the process was. I did talk to somebody at the voting place where I vote, and they said that that just doesn't happen. And I guess because I have lived up most of my life with that information readily available, I would like to see something that isn't necessarily just available on a computer. I'd like to have a very succinct mail that says, you vote here, these are the candidates in your district, and this is when and where you vote. So I did go to the post office. I asked about what kind of mailing could be accomplished. I was told that probably the best and easiest thing for a small community would be something called Every Door Direct. You may all be familiar with that. And I guess it would be up to the board to contact these companies and get a bid or find out what it would cost. I just would really, really appreciate having some advanced information about elections, when, where, and who. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Anybody else care to make any comment to the town board? Okay, with that, Howard's here, but let's try to get through the approval of the minutes and then we'll pick up that, so.
Motion to approve the minutes from the March 29th town board meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the March 29th town board meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. With that, we will put on hold the town board minutes, and we will recall the annual electors meeting. So, Mr. Howard, if you care to explain to us about the 2021 annual audit report. Just for the residents, Howard is our CPA accountant and partner in the accounting firm that the town has used for years. He's excellent.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. It was a really different audit this year. We went through some the COVID in our own family at the end of December, right around Christmas, and then through the month of January. And losing a whole month doing audit work was it wouldn't have worked. And we've had clients that have just been tremendous. And I'm telling you, between Karen and Dan and Lori, they were sending me stuff at home all through the month of January, making copies of invoices and so forth. And they kept saying it was no big deal. I'd ask for something, and before I know it, Karen would be zipping it through the copier, and they had set up, and I'd be getting things at home. And I had several clients who were doing that for me, and so I just appreciated that so much. So you made my life very, very easy, and it could have been that they didn't want to see me around here. So I'm not taking that route, but that could be what it was. So so he's got this up here, and if you look at every page that you have, they're all stamped draft. And so 2 years ago, I lost my right-hand person at the office, and we did not replace her. And as you have internal controls, we're required to have internal controls. And one of the things is if we're issuing audited financial statements, there has to be a second set of eyes that look at the financial statements and at my work papers before they go out the door. So we found a gentleman who is he's a partner at a firm in La Crosse. He is also, he was on the board of the Wisconsin Peer Review Committee at the time before Illinois took over the Midwest. And Bill goes around during the summer, and he goes into CPA's offices and looks at their work papers. He's up on top of all the latest GASBs and requirements. So I lost my right-hand person, but I gained somebody who was this much above in the profession. His only problem, last time I talked to him, was that he was working 90 hours a week. So I didn't want to push him, say, oh, you have to have the town of Delafield's financial statements reviewed by April such and such. And so this has worked out. The last 2 years have been worked out. I've given a draft copy, and with the promise that if he finds something that's materially misstated that has to be changed, I will come back before the board and I will explain what changes took place. That has not happened yet, and I don't anticipate it happening. He may come back and say, you got to fix this work paper, you got to change this footnote or do something like that. He has tweaked certain things, but I don't anticipate the numbers that I'm going to go over tonight changing. If they do, I will be back. So with that in mind, I'm going to go through just a few pages of this report. The financial statements have more pages this year than they did a year ago for several reasons. Part of it is on us. Our profession said your audit report is not good enough, and we're going to take a 1 3/4 page report, and we're going to expand it to 2.5 pages. And, you know, why say, if you can say it with more words, why not, right? The one thing I do like about it is they took our audit opinion, which is what you pay for, and they took it off of the second page, and it's the very first thing that you see under opinions. And that is a good thing. So I'm going to just read those 2 paragraphs, and I'm not going to go through the other pages. So we have audited the financial statements of the governmental activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the town of Delafield as of and for the year ended December 31st, 2021. Those are all technical terms, but we're not, and this is can be misunderstood, we're not issuing an audit opinion. We're issuing audit opinions on multiple things. Governmental activities is a technical term, and it's going to be the first 2 pages of numbers that you come to. Back in 2004, when they issued GASB 34, they said, in the past, you had all these funds. Well, we're going to issue a second set of financial statements where you look at the town all as one. We're going to have one column, all assets, all liabilities. We don't care if it's impact fee money. We don't care if it's ARPA money. We don't care about any of that. If it's town money, it's town money. Second of all, we're going to put all the long-term assets and we're going to put all the long-term liabilities on that statement. So if you go out and you buy an excavator, it's going to go as a capital asset, and it's not going to, on your fund statements, it shows as an expenditure. Out the door, it's gone. Whereas here, we're going to capitalize it and we're going to depreciate it just like a business would. So that's part of the governmental activities. If you go out and get a bank loan, which you did last year, on the fund statements, those show as a quasi-revenue, and they will drop into fund balance under your surplus. Under the second set, under governmental activities, they said, no, that's nuts. That's a bank loan. You are getting this from a third party, you're going to pay them back. It's a liability, just like a business would do. So that's that first set of statements, governmental activities. Then they said, we're going to look at your fund statements, and we're going to have them categorized based on how many assets they each have, how many liabilities they each have, how many revenues they have, and how many expenditures. And you go through calculations, and if they meet certain criteria, they're going to be considered a major fund, and they're going to get their own column. And you'll see that when I take you back to those. That's what that's explaining. I'm still on a report. I'm just explaining the nuances of the language. So we're going to be reporting on each major fund, and then the funds that are considered non-major all go into one catch-all called non-major funds. Part of our opinions are going to be on just that column. Okay, so we have audited the financial statements of the governmental activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information as of December 31st. This is what you pay for in the second paragraph. In our opinion, the accompanying financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the town as of December 31st, 2021. So we are putting our names on the line that I did enough audit work to say that these statements are good. And I'm not saying that every dollar I looked at, that would be silly. I would have been kicked out and canned, and Dan would have quit, and Karen would have taken over. But no, she said she's already shaking her head no. But anyways, I looked at enough to say these are materially stated correctly. Okay, so page 4 is going to be one of the couple pages I'm going to look at. This is a governmental activity. So as you see, there's just one column. Everything is here. And on this statement, you have non-current assets, the long-term, and you have long-term liabilities. This is the only statement you're going to have those. Okay, so you have your long-term debt, you have your capital assets. Otherwise, like the first line, cash, $3.7 million. If you go to the fund statements, you're going to see that same number show up. Cash didn't change. Next one is 1.9 million of property taxes. Go to the fund statements, you're going to see that same number show up. But you go down to capital assets, you are not going to see those numbers anywhere else unless you do a deep dive into the footnotes to the statements. So that's what I'm going to look at. The capital assets, you have land, $544,000, you have capital assets, other ones that are depreciable of almost $12 million. In 2021, you added $994,000 of capital assets. $369,000 were between an excavator and a wheel loader. You also added a Chevy Silverado for $72,000, and you did $528,000 of road work during the year. Added a new backstop at Deltown Park. There was damage there, and you, I guess behind this wall here is a new AC unit, IT chiller, that's called. When you go into the liabilities, the long-term debt is broken into two components. The current portion is obviously what's coming due in 2022, so you have $313,000 there, and you have the non-current part of $3.28 million. There were 3 new loans during the year, totaling $561,000. You paid off $224,000 off, and at the end of 2021, there are 6 loans outstanding. In February, Dan made the final payment, or the board did, of one of the loans. It was a very small loan. It was non-interest bearing loan. It was to the Waukesha County for radio infrastructure. That's gone, so now you have 5 loans. The big one is what we're standing in right now, and that goes back several years already. And at the end of the year, it was almost $2.8 million. Since December 31st, and this is disclosed on our final footnote under subsequent events, I believe it was in February, the board refinanced that loan. And you got a much lower interest rate where now you're at like 2%?
Somewhere around there.
Somewhere around there, yeah, but the other loans were quite a bit higher, so the savings on that are significant. But the amount is still the major one on here, is for this building. Any questions about that page? Otherwise, I'm gonna go into the fund statements. Page 6, which is the balance sheet, and here you can see the different columns. And the 2 major funds, the general fund and the debt service fund, and then the other governmental funds are 2 funds. Based on the calculations, they did not meet the criteria, and that is the ARPA fund, which is brand new, and that will disappear. It's gonna be short-lived over just a couple years. And then you have your impact fee fund. Those are, the information for each one of those is shown on pages 36 through 39. I'm not gonna go back there, but they're in here, but they're shown behind the footnotes. Let me just talk about fund balance, because that's where I'm gonna focus my attention on this page. It's at the bottom, and that's your surplus. It's your fund equity. So I'm on page 6. Yeah, okay. I see some people flipping pages. Okay, so when you talk about fund balance, GASB came and said there's 5 categories of fund balance. You don't fit into one of those categories. There's nothing in here. But they range from the top, which is the most restrictive, all the way down to unassigned, which means anything goes. Okay, you can do whatever you want with the money. The non-spendable part for fund balance is money's already out the door. It didn't relate to 2021, it relates to a future year, but you already spent the money, so you can't spend it again. And in this case, there is $61,000, and it's a combination of the prepaid expenditures up above in the assets and the inventory of supplies. Most of the inventory of supplies is salt, was what it was in the salt shed at the end of the year. You pretty much filled it, and there was very little plowing to do in November and December. So that was $46,000 of that $57,771. The combination of those 2 numbers is what is a non-spendable part of that. It's already been spent. Then you have a restricted part, and that is where there's fund balance. There are revenues that came in, but an outside party tied your hands and said it can only be used for this. It could be a bank, it could be a donor who put that restriction on, or it could be a state statute, it could be state law. And in this case, there's $181,000, and it shows over in the other governmental funds, and that is for the impact fee fund. That is what you have accumulated in impact fees, and you got to figure out a way how to spend that money. It has to be used for park capital improvements. And there are other things that go along with it. There had to be a study done, and it can only be spent for those items, unless you have a new study done. Then there is the next category down, which doesn't show here because you don't have it, it'd be called committed. And that's where the restrictions are placed on by the town board. But you've gone so far as you hired your attorney, you drafted, you either have an ordinance or you have a resolution where there's a legal document and saying, we're gonna put this money in this pot and it can only be spent for this. You don't have anything like that. You do have assigned, and that's the same thing, is where the board has made, set the money aside and you have a replacement fund. But you can change that at any board meeting. It's simply, you know what, we had 50,000 over in this, but we're gonna take 40 of that and we're gonna move it over here, or we're gonna put it in the general fund. Takes a board motion, and then it's done. There's nothing else that's required. And so you have $444,000 that show up in assigned funds, and that is your replacement fund. And you added $105,000 to the assigned in 2021. At the end of the year, you have of that $444,000, $150,000 is set aside for future revaluation, $55,000 for roads and culverts, and I believe, according to the budget, that money is going to be transferred back to the general fund to pay for 2022 road work. You also have facilities improvements of almost $200,000, and then you have park and rec money that has come in and you set aside for park and rec activities. All those add up to $444,000. Like I said, whatever doesn't fit into any of those categories drops out as unassigned. So the total fund balance of the general fund ends at $1,833,000. At the end of the prior year, it was $1,608,000. So it grew by $225,000 during the year. Next page we go, I'm gonna explain how that happened. One other thing I want to talk about here though, is if you look in the third column and go down under the liabilities, there's $277,000 sitting there called unearned revenue. That is the unspent ARPA money. So grant money, we match revenues, expenditures. So you spent money last year for a wheel loader, $184,000. And the ARPA was used to pay for that. Just a little explanation about the American Recoveries Plan Act. Initially, when you got the money, when it was divvied up, they said you could spend it for sewer projects, water projects, broadband. And then they had a little category called lost revenues. And they had a horrendous worksheet that you had to go through. And actually, once you went through it, turned out to be not bad. But you had to look back like 3 years and then do projections 3 years out into and so you go through all that and you figure, did we really lose money that we could qualify for using ARPA money to subsidize our loss of revenue? Well, so you go through all that for months and months and months, and then come January of this year, they issue their final regs, and they say, you know what, forget that. We're gonna give everybody an exemption of $10 million, and say you can use that for whatever governmental activity that you want to. So you can go out and buy a wheel loader. You can go out and buy whatever you want to, but you want to use it, because if you don't use it, you have to give the money back to the feds. And it's a lot of money. So they gave you $462,000 last year. You spent, and that's only half. You're gonna get that same amount of money this year. So we're talking $920,000. That's a good chunk of change. So you spend $184,000. Of that first installment, the $277,000 is left to be spent. So that's about to grow significantly to about $700,000. So that's pretty much covers this page. Now the last item I really want to talk about is then how did the general fund grow by $224,000? If you go to page 10, Exhibit G, this is general fund only, and the second column is the final budget. I totally ignore, because generally you'll go in and you'll say, did we overspend any departments, and then you'll amend the budget, and you'll make the budget equal to what the actual amount is, and then it's kind of lose any meaning. I always like to compare the actual amounts, column 3, to the original budget, column 1. And I add, just for my own sake, I add a variance column with the original budget. That one has the final budget, which is required. There is talk of revamping these financial statements again, and they're talking about adding this column in here as required, a variance with the original budget. So you're just gonna have to bear with me or do the math in your head. It's column 3 minus column 1. So, and oftentimes I look at this variance column and I say, okay, these are the things I want to talk about because those are the things that changed. And there might be 3 or 4 line items, whether it was building or capital outlays. In the town's case, I'm talking about almost every single line. So taxes, they were 4,800 more than anticipated. And normally the tax line the actual is whatever you levied. And that is because you took in land use penalties. Somebody converted their land from ag use to residential, and they had gotten tax breaks during the prior year, so they had a penalty, and this was what the town received during the year. No way of knowing what that's gonna be, and it's not budgeted for. Intergovernmental, $63,000 more than anticipated, and that is because fire insurance dues came in here. When the town signed up with Lake Country Fire, this was one of those things where we're not doing fire anymore. What the state still gave you $63,000 of fire insurance dues, which turns into your revenue. The town then ended up cutting a check back to Lake Country Fire, so the expenditures are over budget too. But anyways, so intergovernmental were significantly over budget. Regulation compliance, $59,000 more than budget. You took in $32,000 more in building permit revenue. You also adopted a resolution a couple years back where it said if anybody hasn't came in and finished off their building and they're not gonna get their occupancy deposit back, and it'll be forfeited and kept by the town. And, I mean, we were chasing permit, or these deposits back from almost 15 years and going through everyone every year, and so right now they gotta get their work done and have it built and get the landscaping done or whatever else, or they're not gonna get their money back. There was $19,000 of forfeitures last year. The charges for services were $15,000 over budget. Even though you went over to Lake Country Fire, you still continued to receive ambulance fees, revenues from pre-2021 ambulance calls. So there's about $22,000 of those revenues. The next one is interest earnings. That's a kind of an interesting one. You had a budget of $27,000, you took in $2,000. And it's probably not a surprise to anybody. The year before, you'd taken in almost $20,000. Just to give you an idea, at the beginning of 20, when you took in $20,000, the interest rates at the state investment pool were 1.6%. At the end of 21, they were 0.06%. Hardly worth anything. There was a time, I've been auditing the town for a long time, and this goes back many years, maybe 20 years, but they would have an interest budget of $190,000. Okay, so then I go over to miscellaneous, $30,000 to the good. You had a budget of $1,500, you took in $31,000, and that is because you started renting out Fire Station 2, and you took in $18,000 for the rental for the months in 2021. You also received $12,000 for insurance recoveries for damage that was done over at Del Park for a backstop. And again, you have expenditures for that, so that's going to show down below. Transfers in $184,000, that's the money coming from ARPA to pay for the wheel loader. The face amount of the long-term debt, you had budgeted $400,000, you actually ended up borrowing $561,000, so you borrowed $161,000 more than you had expected to, and that was to pay for the purchase of a 7-ton excavator. So between the wheel loader and the excavator, you had either ARPA money or additional borrowings to pay for those. And obviously those are going to show down below. But the top half of that, the resources, it shows $100,000 there, but that's only because the budget was amended. The actual was $520,000 difference between the original budget and the final and the actual. If you look at the 5.2 million in the first column, and the actual is 5.7 million. Then you go down to charges for services or outflows, I'll call them expenditures. General government was $64,000 under budget. You, for various reasons, and this doesn't happen very often, but the professional fees were $43,000 less than budgeted. And I can speak very firmly about the audit and accounting being a component of that, and I'm not talking $100. Dan has saved the town a lot of money. He has made my job a lot easier, and he has done work that I have done in the past, no question about it. And I'm sure the same is true for some of the engineering and legal and whatever else. There was also a savings of part-time staff in the administrator's office, $11,000 under budget, and insurance was also $11,000 under budget. And I'm not certain about why that was. Public safety was $101,000 over budget. First of all, I had mentioned you took in more permit revenue, so therefore you paid your inspectors more money, $16,000. But the big one was the $63,000 payment to LCFR for the fire insurance dues. that had not been budgeted for. There was also an absorption because at the end of 20, there was like $20,000 of fire department inventory, consumables that were here, and those were basically absorbed into Lake Country Fire and Rescue, and they were gone, and we needed a place to basically write those down. Go over to Highway and Transportation, again, the actual compared to the original budget was $58,000 to the good. Roadwork was $24,000 under budget. Wages and benefits were $17,000 under budget. Parks and Recreation were $31,000 to the good. You had budgeted for a full-time person, and that did not happen. And then your capital outlays were $342,000 more than planned. And again, those were those two items that I talked about before that were funded by the ARPA money and also by the additional borrowing. Those had not been planned. Now, you're seeing variances quite a bit different than that, and that's because the budgets were amended during the year. Because for those overages, the board was well aware of them. They let the contracts, they approved the bills and the purchases, and then amended the budget accordingly. So the top half was $520,000 over budget with revenues. The bottom half was $300,000 over with expenditures. The net of those was a positive $224,000, which is what the general fund balance grew by. That's a lot of words. Any questions on any of that?
Our fund balances are in good shape, Howard.
They're excellent.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that I looked at, I always like to look at, when you do the 2022 budget, those middle columns that are for the prior year, and you do projections. You say, we expect 2021 to be X. And then you say, okay, we can make some decisions based on that. Because oftentimes, the budget's like bare minimum, and either you have a deficit budget or you don't have any money. But this was kind of anticipated, that number was like $120,000, $115,000 expected surplus. And at that time, the board decided, you know what, we're going to move money then into the replacement fund, $105,000, and we're going to put additional money for this and for that. I think it was for the reval and maybe for the roads and culverts. And so they did that. So it turned out to be even better than that, $100,000 more to the good. So that's something just to chew on, maybe at a future board meeting, to say, you know what, we do have a lot of money in unassigned fund balance for the general fund. Are there future capital projects for the highway, for whoever, that we want to set money aside in our replacement fund and put more money there and not leave it in the unassigned? But now you have some flexibility to do that.
Yes.
Okay. So there's that. Then we have our letter to the board, and there was no additional things to report on. I didn't need a ruler to slap anybody's hand. But so the one issue was resolved. The year before, there was a debt payment that was not made timely. And unfortunately, those things get reported online. But in 2021, the debt payments were all made on a timely basis when they were either on the date or usually before the date that they were due. Unresolved, there's still discrepancies between the garbage pickups and how much is being charged for garbage, the number of pickups, and how much you're being charged by your service. So, and I know you switched companies starting this year, so hopefully that part of it is going to get resolved this year. Other than that, that's my report.
Does anybody in the audience have any questions for Howard? Anybody on the board?
Seems like every year we talk about internal controls. Are they getting better, or are we just hamstrung because of the small staff that we have?
I haven't used the word hamstrung, but yeah, I mean, there's not enough people in here to do this.
But we have no problems or issues with it.
Nothing came across.
Yeah.
No problem. It just, we talk about it every year
Oh,
about
yeah.
how to improve it. so.
It's really difficult. I mean, we don't put our names on this and saying internal control is great or fine. We don't do that. We don't give an opinion on internal control. Much of the information I garner is from Dan. Well, if he's the one who's the problem, I mean, you know what I'm saying? I don't have a lot of the double checks that you would if you had a full accounts payable department or accounts receivable department or that kind of thing.
But we also don't deal in any cash, so everything just goes through our checking system and our online billing system and our payroll system. So it's, and you audit all those accounts. So And with Karen to watch over Dan, I'm not worried about Dan.
She-
Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, if Karen did anything unethical, I would die.
Yeah. Okay, I
And
think
you
that's
too.
great. Really nice report, Howard.
Thank you, Howard.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Motion to
We need a
accept.
motion to approve the 2021 annual audit as presented.
Thank you.
Okay, we got a motion on the floor and a second. And a second. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ollie.
Okay, motion passes. The budget's been approved. Thank you, sir. The department reports we've already gone through, so if there's nothing else, we could do a motion to adjourn. Have a motion to adjourn in a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Our annual meeting is concluded.
Thank you all.
Thanks for coming, everyone. And we'll move back to the town board supervisors meeting. And I believe we're at item 6, action on vouchers submitted for payments. There are no reports or on budget subaccounts or actions to amend the 2021 budget. So we'll move to accounts payable and payroll.
So with accounts payable, I'd like to make a motion to approve payments of checks 65547 through 65573 and checks 65581 through 65665 in the amount of $678,867.43. And for payroll, a motion to approve payrolls dated April 15th, 2022 in the amount of $15,704.19.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve accounts payable and payroll as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Any opposed? Motion passes. Communications. There are no formal communications. I, however, would like to make an announcement that there was discussion of putting the Thomas Farm public hearing scheduled for the Plan Commission meeting in May. That has been put off. We're trying to work with the county to do a joint town board, town plan commission, and county board joint public hearing, because they have to have a public hearing as well. So it'll probably be postponed until sometime in June.
I would just ask that we avoid Monday nights,
Oh,
if
yeah.
possible.
Yeah, we'll avoid Monday nights. There is no unfinished business, so we'll move into new business, discussion, and possible action on the recommendation from the Plan Commission to approve a request from Joseph and Mary Esser for a certified survey map to combine lots located at N26W30255 Maple Avenue. This came up from the Plan Commission, and I believe it was unanimous at the Plan Commission.
It was, this is a property that has just a property line dividing the property, so they want to make changes in the county, and the town is requiring them to combine the lots, so pretty straightforward.
If there's no questions,
I'll motion to approve the certified survey map for Joseph and Mary Esser to combine lots located at N26W30255 Maple Avenue.
I'll second. Do we know if they've made the technical corrections that Tim wanted, or should we make that motion?
You can add with technical corrections. I haven't seen anything come through, so I don't think they have yet.
I'll amend my motion to include the updates of any technical grammatical edits stated in the 4/4/2022 memo to the surveyor by the town engineer.
All right, I'll second that motion then.
I have a second, I have an amendment motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes. Discussion and possible action on the approval of a bartender license to Danielle Merton.
Sure, this is the start of many more operator licenses that'll be coming our way. We didn't have any last year, so they're 2-year cycles. This is the year that everyone's coming due. Danielle had no criminal history, so I recommend approval.
Motion to approve the bartender license for Danielle Merton.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the bartender license for Danielle Merton. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Discussion and possible action on the approval of Resolution 22-659, a resolution authorizing the town of Delafield's participation in and adoption of Lake Country Fire and Rescue's Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan for 2021.
Yes, thank you. So you did email it out with everyone, right?
Yeah, it was in the packet.
Okay, cool. So before you, you have what is known as, we call it a SEMP, but it's a Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan. This plan has been adopted now by all 6 of our other partner communities. And really what it is it's your roadmap to receive state and federal dollars in the event of a natural or man-made disaster should one strike the town of Delafield. So it provides you with the steps, the policies, the procedures on how to declare an emergency, who declares an emergency, how to activate the Emergency Operations Center, and everything down the line. And as these incidents get more and more complex, for instance, the train derailment that happened in the city of Pewaukee a couple of weeks back, it's really, really important to have this roadmap with you and to guide you through every step of the way. So about the first 80 pages of the document are really the nuts and bolts of it, if you will. And then after that, it gets into what they call ESF, or emergency support functions. And that's everything from fire protection to law enforcement to public works and utilities and what they need to do. And it's really checklists for them so that they're following it all through the T and everything's done on the up and up. So this same plan really is adopted. We took the county plan and put Lake Country Fire Rescue on it, and that's by design because the county adopts part of the state plan and it all kind of flows down that natural system of emergency management that starts at the federal government with FEMA, has a state involvement, then it gets to Waukesha County EM, and then down to the local municipalities. By the intermunicipal agreement, Lake Country Fire Rescue is designated as your emergency management partner. So this is our, I guess, bread and butter, if you will, if something big happens. Any questions at all on it?
No? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
We'll just add, we're doing a full-scale exercise training. It will be at our Lake Country Station 42, so downtown city of Delafield. It is on May 6th, and it will run, really starts at about 11:30, and it's going to run till about 3 o'clock. And it is, and not by design from what happened in Pewaukee a couple weeks ago, but we're simulating a train derailment in the city of Delafield. But if you have any interest in learning about emergency management, it will be a very good exercise to be at. If you're planning or you'd like to come, let Dan know so he can give me a head count. We are a little bit limited on space, and if we can't get you in personally, we will get you a Teams invite and you can watch and learn through one of the various Teams channels that we're doing, because we are just a little limited on space with everyone there. But it will really be a good, you know, kind of get your feet wet type thing. And then Dan and I are meeting with the rest of the administrators from our 7 partner communities next week to talk about emergency management more in general, and to just some things that we've discovered throughout the years, and just stuff we can all team up on and just bring a regional approach to it. So.
Well, and thank you for bringing the TEAC team in a couple weeks ago too for that training on.
Yeah, that was great. That was great. We're already looking at next year, so.
Do you have thoughts what next training you want to do? They had the big book.
Yes, TEAC's had a recommendation. I always forget about elections because they don't, you know, they're not really in our wheelhouse, but where we scheduled the training, it was right on top of the election. So I think we're going to target to do a little bit earlier in February next year, and it'll be a 2-day training, and the TEAC's group really recommended the training. But everyone gave the TEAC's training rave reviews, both internally and externally. So it's good stuff, and the more we want to build everyone's knowledge base, and that's kind of some of the stuff that Dan and I will be talking about. There's some very simple classes that you can take. It's the federal government, so forgive them, but it actually starts with 700, and then you move to 800, and then you go to 1 and 2. How they did it, I have no idea, but I don't claim to even want to understand it. But they're about 2-hour-long classes. You can do them at the leisure of your residence. It's all online-based learning, but it really provides you with the fundamentals that you need. If we get into a train derailment, or we get into some natural disaster, man-made disaster in your community, on how we really work together. And I think the thing is that this is a partnership, so we're here to work together with everyone and really be your advocate and help you make informed decisions and feed you that information in a timely manner. So that's just crucial. So
Okay, thank you, sir.
thank you very much.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Sorry. You just mentioned train derailments, and I'm just curious how much in contact are you with the Canadian National folks as far as those, because we have those trains running through.
We are in weekly contact with them right now as they develop this incident for us. And I won't steal Chief Hoppy's thunder because he was really intricate in the incident in Pewaukee. We've been through countless trainings with them over the years, and I always kind of thought some of it was a sales pitch as to how fast they would get there and how they really want to mitigate that situation. But it was pretty remarkable how fast they got there and really what they brought to the situation. You know, what first priorities in any incident is life safety, so we're worried about that. Then we're worried about hazard mitigation, so what's the green stuff running out of the tanker truck into the lake? And then really we're worried about scene preservation and mitigation. And they have a better vested interest in getting that railway open than we do. It costs them a lot of money every single hour that the railway is down. So they will be very eager to get it open, and not only open, but open in a safe way. So I was very surprised as to how fast they operated and how safe they operated. I had the opportunity to go check it out a couple times over there. But the biggest thing that we need to provide for them is a very large parking space and multiple parking lots for them, because they will, I mean, the earth moving equipment that they bring, depending on the access and depending where the incident actually occurs, is very, very substantial. So that's the biggest thing. But it's
It's just top of mind, so thank you.
yeah, no, absolutely.
They were here twice for a training. Canadian Pacific came in and did training in front of our groups to talk about everything they do ahead of this tabletop exercise we're doing. So they're very receptive to helping the local deal with that type of disaster.
We talked next year, we're gonna bring them out for a locomotive training where they'll put it in the switch in Neshota, and our crews will actually get hands-on with a locomotive, cause there's some pretty big hazards there and how you shut them down and what happens when you shut them down. So it's a lot more to come, and their training goes as in-depth as they will fly our crews out to their training center and really give them some week-long hands-on training, and they cover the travel, they cover the expenses, they cover it all from start to finish. So they're very big on training. So
Thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate
great.
Thank
Thank you, Chief. With that,
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the resolution authorizing the town of Delafield's participation in the adoption of the Lake Country Fire and Rescue Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan 2021 for resolution number 22-659.
Second.
I have a motion to accept the resolution as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes. Announcements, Town Board is Tuesday, April 26th, 6:30. Plan Commission meeting is May 3rd, and the first meeting in May for the Town Board is Tuesday, May 10th. If there's nothing else, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion to adjourn and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks, Dick, for coming.